Treasury of Illustrated Classics, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. Chapter 7. Shark Attack. The next morning, I woke up alone in my cabin. Ned and Conseil must have been carried away. I felt fine, but I wondered why the captain had drugged us. I went to the door of my cabin, and it was open. I was free to roam the ship. Captain Nemo came to my door. His eyes were all red, and he looked very tired. "I have a sick man on board," Nemo said with great sadness. "Can you help him?" A young man lay on the bed. His head was wrapped in bandages that were soaked with blood. The wound was so deep that the poor man's brains was showing. "There is nothing I can do. He is dying," I said. Captain Nemo's eyes filled with tears. "The young man died and was buried at sea. I did not see Captain Nemo for several days after that. I wondered over and over again how the young man had been so badly hurt. We soon came to the crystal waters of the Indian Ocean. Nemo asked me to go diving with him for pearls. We got into our diving suits, and soon we were on the bottom of the sparkling sea. Nemo led the way to an undersea cave. It was dark and gloomy inside. The captain moved toward a large white shape. It was a giant oyster that must have weighed 700 pounds. Nemo forced open the shell. Inside was a glowing pearl the size of a coconut. Once outside the cave, I saw a shadow in the water. It was an Indian pearl diver. The water in which we swam was the clearest water in the world. From the surface, you could look down 300 feet and see tiny crabs crawling on the bottom. The diver had no trouble spotting the oysters. This water was also filled with the biggest and meanest sharks in the sea. I was frightening, but I didn't say anything to Captain Nemo. We watched the diver go to the bottom as he held his breath. He would grab an armload of oysters, then surface to the tiny boat. It was then that I saw another terrible shadow. It was a killer shark. The shark was headed straight for the poor diver. The jaws of the killer fish were open wide. Its eyes were dull and black. The diver was able to move aside just in time to escape the shark's jaws. But he was hit in the chest by its powerful tail. The poor diver was knocked unconscious. He lay deathlike on the ocean floor. Then the shark came back to make his kill. Captain Nemo sprang into action. He leapt at the fierce shark, armed with only a knife in his hand. The shark turned and headed right for Nemo. His gaping jaws looked as if they would cut the captain in two. Captain Nemo braced himself. The man-killer came at him with the deadly speed of a freight train. Nemo sidestepped the shark with the grace of a dancer, but the killer turned and charged again. Nemo was ready. As the shark made his next pass, Captain Nemo sank his knife deep into the belly of the shark. Blood gushed from the shark's pale underside, and the water turned bright red. Soon there was so much blood in the water that I could not even see the captain. Behind the curtain of blood raged the battle. Then there was a clear spot in the water. I saw the captain. He had the shark by the fins. Although Nemo had stabbed the shark over and over, he could not reach its heart. He was getting tired. Suddenly, he lost his grip. The killer shark closed in on the weary captain. I was so afraid that I couldn't move a muscle in my body. Then I remembered Ned's harpoon. I had taken it along for extra protection. I rushed at the shark and plunged the harpoon in as deeply as it would go. I did not miss. The shark was struck right through the heart. Twisting in agony, it sank to the bottom. I had killed it. Captain Nemo was unhurt. When we recovered, we remembered the Indian diver. Rushing to where the poor fellow lay, we found him still tied to the rock he used to help him sink to the bottom. We cut the helpless diver free and pulled him to safety. We dragged the diver into his tiny wooden boat. He looked pale and was barely breathing. His blue lips trembled, then they were still. The captain rubbed the man's chest to revive him. The diver finally opened his eyes. In shock, he stared at our strange suits and big copper helmets. He was even more shocked when Captain Nemo took out a bag of shining pearls and put it in his hand. We left the Indian safe in his boat with his precious bag of pearls. Once back on the bottom, we looked at the dead shark. He was huge with 6 rows of teeth. Safe aboard the Nautilus, the captain and I rested from our battle with the shark. A day later, Captain Nemo called me to the library. "I thank you with my heart, Professor," the captain said with great warmth and kindness. You saved me from certain death." "I was only paying you back for saving me. It was you who first pulled the three of us from the water," I reminded him. He nodded and smiled. Soon we entered the Red Sea. We saw the spot where Moses was said to have parted the waters. We all watched our surroundings with great awe and wonder. Then one clear day we saw something even more interesting and very much alive. The Nautilus was cruising along on the surface, cutting the water like a knife. Ned and I were talking on deck, enjoying very much the open air. Suddenly we saw a huge black shape in the water. "Maybe it's a rock," I suggested to Ned. He didn't reply, but stared in wonder. "Maybe it's a whale," Ned said at last, his eyes eager, full of excitement. "Are there any whales in the Red Sea?" "It's not a whale," I answered, straining to finally name the mysterious creature. We were nearing the animal now. I began to see it more clearly, and then I knew exactly what it was. My heart raced. I turned in and slapped him on the back. "My word, Ned, it's a dugong!" I exclaimed. "What on earth is a dugong?" asked Ned. "It is a rare sea animal found only in this part of the world." Ned ran to the side of the deck and stood staring at the huge animal. "Is it dangerous?" he asked. "Not very, and I hear it tastes better than steak," I told him. That did it. Ned got a very hungry look on his face. He ran to get his harpoon. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please click like and subscribe.